Howdy, folks. Welcome back to VIVA La Cats. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Steve Maurer, and we are here to unpack this week that was the Bearcats. We are, of course, presented by the 1012 Network and our partners over at Charlie Hustle, so make sure to check both out. And without further ado, first item on the docket up here for our listeners. Tased in the balls. Steve, please.
Just imagine that the 7 hills of Cincinnati are blue, and that this is actually a sea light that is a Cincy light. So we all need our copium.
Yeah, it's time, people. It's time to get serious. So we are T-minus. We are about 2 hours post the Iowa State game. It is Tuesday evening, February 13th of 2024, and the Bearcats have just lost 2 straight games at home. Their record at home is horrendous in the Big 12, and it is yet another top 10 team. Another opportunity thrown away, doing it yourself. There's a lot of ways that we could go about unpacking this, but I think the biggest one to just kind of throw out there, how many turnovers did we have in this game, Steve?
Well, you're going to have to tell me because I see 21 on a certain app, and you say 25. So
I saw 25. Maybe it is 21. Maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was.
I'm going to make it worse, though.
It was as bad as thought.
21 turnovers or 25, no, however many. Iowa State had 26 points off of said turnovers. So not ideal.
No, yeah. Total turnovers for the Bearcats is 25, according to ESPN.
Well, the score is wrong. So,
well,
the score is a bunch of Cincinnati fans. They're just trying to help us out, you know.
Yeah. It's there's not really any way to put a Band-Aid on this. This was a horrible game. This was 2 halves of the Bearcats trying their best to give Iowa State every possible opportunity to score, playing defense when they don't have the ball, and then playing offense by passing it to Iowa State every other possession. I don't know exactly how many possessions we had during this game, but I'm pretty sure if you totaled it up, compared to our 50 attempted shots, there was a total of 25 turnovers, which means that for every 1 shot you took, you turned the ball over. Every other shot. That's a horrible analogy. Steve, this thing is just ugly. Like, there's so many things that you could just point to in this game that just did not go right. But ultimately, it felt like Iowa State's very solid defense was, you could give them credit, but I don't know how much credit you need to give them when we're hucking passes across the court from corner to corner of the arc straight into an Iowa State player's hands. You're throwing over 3 players to try to go to one double-covered guy on the other side of the ball. You've got 2 guys getting double covered up at the arc, and then they push in, and then you've got another double coverage. Iowa State was everywhere. So credit to their defense. They did an absolutely amazing job. It felt like we were playing a full court press all 40 minutes. Like, no breaks. Well, they did a fantastic job, but it was just insane how many times we just gave them the ball.
Yeah, and then, I just want to point this out, Justin. Our 3 combined big men of Vic, Aziz, and Jamil played 50 combined minutes and scored a total of 6 points. 6. So, less than ideal, I'll say. They combined for 6 points and 13 rebounds. That's really not going to get it done. We got clearly boss in the paint. The points in the paint, 36-14 in favor of Iowa State. Maybe some of those were part of those points off turnovers. I do think, Justin, this was just like, and it shows this out in our field goal percentage. We shot 38% from the field. and 19 for 50, but 9 of those were threes. So we made 10 2-point baskets all night. I mean, credit to them. They shut down our big men, and then we felt we were forced to pass the ball around a lot more and try to find open men where we could. And it just didn't happen. And think about this, Justin. Like, I don't know how many possessions we ended up having, but if you end 21 possessions with turnovers, and you end at least 25 more with you essentially you did not do your job on 45 of your 65 possessions tonight. Like, that's just not going to get it done, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate because, like, and look at this too. Second chance points for the Bearcats, 8. So really it was like 6 buckets that they made that were not either like a putback, like a tip in or anything like that. It just wasn't good enough tonight. And I'm not really going to get upset about losing a game against a top 10 team at home. But and I'm not going to get, people are upset that, we were favored and then we lost. Like, we've been favored in all of these games. At some point you just can't
Let
listen
it
to
go.
what Vegas says. Like,
Yeah.
you
Let
gotta,
that go, people. Let that ship sail.
I have the take for you, Justin. We can continue our Bearcat self-loathing in just a second, but do you think Iowa State is going to win the Big 12? They have the tiebreaker right now over Houston, as long as they go to Houston next Monday night. But I that might have been the best team in the Big 12 we just played right there, to be honest. And like,
I
there might be a certain amount of
Yeah.
copium there, but
No, no,
look,
no, 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 no. Absolutely no copium there. I think you are nailing the head there on that one, because if there's anything that I've learned, at least from this season, is that there's at least some amount of ability for the Bearcats to come back in the second half, to play themselves into a game. Let's be honest, they put up a couple shots at the end to soften the blow, but this thing could have easily cracked open to 15, 20, 25, 30 points. Like, this game was way out of hand, and we just happened to hit a couple shots at the right time towards the end to make the score look better. But if we're being completely honest, Iowa State blew out Cincinnati, and that's just unfortunately the fact. Shout out to one of my coworkers. He is a massive Iowa State fan, and I'm going to hate having to talk to him about this. But the Bearcats just brought nothing in comparison to what Iowa State brought tonight. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And I think that if there's one thing to learn from how the Bearcats have played this entire season, it's that, through the Big 12, that is, it's that they can take anybody to the wire. They've managed to do that against Kansas. They've managed to do that against Oklahoma. They managed to do that against Houston. They managed to do that against Texas Tech, against some of these top teams, win or loss. They've managed to take all these teams down to the wire. What's the one team that didn't do that? What's the one team that broke this 5-point barrier that nobody has been able to touch and keep at midline for the Bearcats? Iowa State. And like I said, quite frankly, Iowa State is the only team that's really just given it to them. Granted, I think this is a little bit of the case of what we've liked to call. I don't remember who exactly pulled up the stat first. Credit to whoever that was. Might have been Chad Brendel, might have been Keegan or somebody else. But the supposed Cincinnati hangover, I think this is a little bit of the Houston hangover. You play a very tough defensive team that is going to grind you out every single play, is going to make you work for it. It's going to be very hard. And then you have that week off before you play Houston, but then you turn around Sunday, Monday, and then you play Tuesday night. You have 2 days off to recover from Houston, of all teams, and then to play Iowa State, who I'd argue is better. So it's a very tough turnaround, and I think Iowa State is a very good team. I think they legitimately could be the team to win the Big 12, and I think they look firmly in the driver's seat to do that,
well,
like you said.
here's what I think about that too. Just because they play Texas Tech on Saturday, Iowa State does, but they're the only team in this league right now to have beat Houston and Kansas, and they were the only team. Well, they were a missed shot and like a crazy couple bounces away from beating Baylor at Baylor, and that's 3 of the top 5 teams in the league. And
Yep.
on the other hand, if you take a look at the Bearcats, The Bearcats have only beaten 2 teams in the top half of the table. They've beaten TCU at home and Texas Tech on the road. Every other team they've lost to. And, the only other games you've won are BYU and UCF. And they've played themselves a few games too,
Yep.
so I just had to get that joke in there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's fine to say that they are just not really performing as a top 5 team. I don't want people, again, what did I say before the conference schedule even started, Justin? Remember where your thoughts were after those certain benchmarks of the season that I mentioned and apply those to now. We definitely we're excited after a few games. Seeing the Bearcats beat a top 15 Texas Tech team on the road was exciting. Same thing for that BYU game. But this is still just a team that we know what its flaws are. And another one seems to be that they cannot play that well at home. They can't win at home. And it's just frustrating right now. When we'll talk about Houston next, but how many times are you going to play 2 top 10 teams on at home in back-to-back games? Welcome to the Big 12. By the way, UC is now 3-7 in its last 10 games. So, and we'll talk about our bracketology later, but it looks rough right now. I think if you had won either of these last, why don't we just go ahead and talk about Houston now, Justin?
No, Steve. We have way too much to cover on this game still.
Okay, all right.
Hold on, hold your horses.
Let him cook.
We will get into the bracketology. The window is absolutely starting to close, and you need to figure it out fast. But I have a couple points that I want to make. You have the whole game against Iowa State tonight. You have this whole ugly crap fest, whatever it is. I want to mention the one bright spot in this game. You could say there maybe is a few, but I'm going to mention the one bright spot, and that is Dan Skillings Jr. Dan Skillings in this game, 13 points, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 3 assists, 11 rebounds. That is 2 short of all 3 big men that we had combined by himself. 4 offensive rebounds at that mark. And guess what else he had? A big fat 0 on that turnover spot too. No turnovers, contributed a handful of points, had a double-double with 0 turnovers in a game where we turned the ball over 25 times. That is a big credit to a guy who, yes, does sometimes play off the ball, but has the ball in his hands a lot during the game. And I think it just goes to show that sometimes you're going to have guys that are on, sometimes you're going to have guys that are off. Dan has been a little bit of hot and cold, but if anything, he's at least been consistent in effort, and he's been consistent in giving quality minutes when he's out on the floor. And he brings the heat on the offense and defensive side of the ball. I think in a very similar way to John Newman. John Newman had 29 minutes tonight, only to 2 points. However, that does not match the effort, does not match the intensity that he brings to the game, does not match every other statistical category that the guy can fill on the sheet. He is a stat sheet filler. Sometimes he just doesn't pour it in, just like a lot of these other guys don't pour it in all the time. But very consistent. And I think that this is just one of those things that, again, you have a guy like that that's really, really solid. And I'm not going to go through and, try to pick apart every piece of this, but a really key point in this game that I think is starting to pull down the Bearcats, especially in the stretch that they've been losing over these past few key games. I'm not saying that this one person is to blame. Hear me out. Listen very closely. This one person is not to blame, but this missing factor was a key factor in the first half of the Big 12 games when everything was going very good. Victor Locken has become a very missing piece that was fundamentally core to the identity of the Bearcats in the first half of these Big 12 games. I put out a tweet earlier this week because I was just curious to see how he was performing in this back half. Through the first 4 Big 12 games, 13 points, 21 for 34, 17 rebounds, 4 for 8 from 3, 4 blocks, 6 steals, 7 turnovers on 28.5 minutes. In the last 5 games, this does not include tonight's game, in which he had 9 minutes and a big 0 in every single column except for one offensive rebound. In those other 5 games, he has 3.2 points, 4 for 28, 25 rebounds, 0 for 11 from 3, 6 blocks, a steal to 9 turnovers on 21 minutes. And now with that 9 minutes, it's going down probably sub 20. I don't know what's happened. I know that he got sick. I know that some other thing happened. It looks like there's a shot to his confidence. It's clearly not helping when he's getting cheered for off the court, unfortunately, by the home crowd from what we've heard and saw through this game. But this has been a complete 180 for this guy. And it's really sad to see because, like I said, he's been so core to this team. And he was very consistent all the way through. And unfortunately, the floor fell out beneath him. And now he's not really, I just don't know how to fix this problem because he was doing so well for so long. And, you could see that everybody had their flaws. Everybody was kind of doing good and bad, hot and cold. But he was very consistent for so many games. And now he's been a consistent non-factor in these past 5-6 games. And so I'm just trying to figure out from the team identity going forward and for Victor Locken, what is the solution to fix this to get him back on track? And if he's not, who's going to step up and fill the gap? Because I don't even know if we played Odie at all tonight. So we didn't play Odie. Vic is a non-factor. That's 2 big men that are doing nothing for you. And Jamil and Aziz are trying their best, but there's only so much you can do. So, like I said, I'm just trying to figure out what is the solution there? How do you get this guy back in it? Because this isn't like this is a freshman that was doing really good and then just, fell off. This guy has been around Cincinnati for a hot minute. He's had the minutes. He's had the experience. You have to find a way to get him back involved or this thing is not going to work. And like I said, we felt really good. Even though we had lost a few games, we felt really good through those first 4 or 5 games in Big 12 play. Now, the clock's ticking. Things are getting a little bit uglier, and we've got to find some wins, and it's going to be really hard to if one of your bigs have less than 10 minutes and cannot supply you with anything more than 1 rebound in a game. That was giving you 13, 14, 15 points a night, a near double-double every night, is now giving you 1 rebound and 0 points. I don't see how we fix that without fixing whatever's going on with Vic.
And you know why this is the best league in the world? And, well, in college basketball, Justin, not the best basketball league in the world. Might only be 6th in the world, But it's because the coaches in this league are really smart. They can pick up on these trends. And who's to say that the coaches for the past few teams that we've played have not noticed that Vic is struggling and really just gone after him, made him uncomfortable, made him not want to be a part of this. Justin, something that I just cherry picked here, he's got 0 points in 3 of his last 4 games and only had 4 against Texas Tech. And maybe he was able to be a little bit more effective, but it seems like coaching staffs have really just tried to make him uncomfortable and take him out of games. And Aziz,
he's 4 of 30 in this stretch.
Yeah.
He has 4 total made baskets across 6 games.
Well, and then I think Aziz, too, is just like he's definitely a good player, as we saw during multiple games this year. He's just not able to be completely consistent right now. And Jamil, it's just hard for him right now. I'm sure it would just took a toll on him to be the longest one out, to not be able to be full go with these guys and still just picking it up. And just the lack of production from the big man position is really what's hurting us in this recent stretch here. I do think it's that these coaching staffs have really tried to center on taking him away from what UC can do. And if you take Victor away, that just takes another passing opportunity for guys to get open, make those open shots. And UC was able to, credit to them, they were able to get open threes tonight, knocking them down. But they just got bossed in the paint, in the paint battle. And they really need, like we've seen in a couple of games this year, Justin, where they've really won the game because of how good they were in the paint. And I do think that it's they've got to figure it out. As some of you may have heard, Wes did say in his post game tonight that they're going to figure it out, and he's upset and he's mad, and the comments were not very kind to him. But I get it. I understand why he's upset. Like, you don't want to lose. Obviously, he's a competitor, but again, just from a fan, and he's a coach. He's the coach, though. He's not supposed to like just accept these things, and I'm not accepting it either. I'm just trying to say, look, this is what it was when we had, and we all knew what the assignment was going to be this year. We said if we could get 8 conference wins, we would feel good about our chances. Yeah. I still feel good about those chances. We'll talk about them later. This just sucks.
Yeah, well, and this will be our last point, and then we can move on to the Houston game. But like you mentioned, the points in the paint, I don't remember if you already said this, so sorry if you did, but I want to reiterate this. 36-14 lost points in the paint. That is a massive deficit. They're near doubling you. And then on top of that, rebounding, you out-rebound them 38-24. So you dominated the glass, but they absolutely dominated you offensively, and they bullied you in the paint. So, like, you can't trade that off. So where you were so aggressive, and you have been all season, you've still been able to do that, but they were much more effective on their shooting. And this is the other thing that's kind of troublesome too, is because even in this game, you look at how this was a 9-point game, but the Bearcats were 70% from the free throw stripe. They were almost 40% from 3, and they're about 40% from the floor. So all in all, I think those are workable factors for a lot of the games. But then when you turn the ball over 25 times, you've just lost so many opportunities to score. You've shot 50 times in this game, but that's perhaps, even with those 25 turnovers, if you cut that in half, that's another at least 10 shots that you could have taken. That's a theoretical, at least another 4 or 5 baskets that you could have made, which means that this is a tie game or a win. So it's just one of those things that you can't win in every category if you're playing in the Big 12, but you got to win in the categories that matter. I think they did that for what they could tonight, but the one category that really just shot themselves in the foot, again, was the turnovers. And in comparison to the Houston game, you only had 8. So you had 9 turnovers by the time you reached the 12-minute mark, 12 to go in the first half. You had 8 total against Houston, which is the number 1 defense in the country. Some kind of disconnect there. Maybe it's the style of ball, but Iowa State did a fantastic job shutting down the Bearcats tonight, and unfortunately, that was the reason they lost by 9, 68-59. This is the last thing, because I wanted to ask the general crowd how we feel. Do we want to come back to this after we talk about Houston, or do we want to do this now?
Let's do it now. Yeah, let's rip it off, okay. And then we'll talk about Houston real quick.
Let's rip that Band-Aid off. Okay, so we asked the folks, unpack, give us your thoughts. A lot of different responses, but we'll just ram them off real fast. At Burger 3491, hopefully I said that right. Big 12 basketball is really good. Nights like this will happen. Just ask Kansas. Whoop-de-doo. 79-50 loss to Texas Tech. That's a huge one. So thank you for pointing that out. We're on to Orlando Tech. Agreed. Joe Ross, big men in the weight room for the entire offseason. Free throws and pushing up and down the floor for all. You could probably agree with that. Patrick C, turnovers and free throws were the story tonight. Offense generally appears to be a free-for-all with no rhythm to it. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of back and forth there, but
experienced point guard.
Yeah, that could definitely help. Barry McStevens, what the hell does Wes Miller draw up during timeouts? Ask Wes. Eric Gonzalez, doesn't matter how many free throws or field goals you make if you keep turning the ball over. This game was absolutely awful. No excuses. Hard to argue with that. Comeback Cronin. Gotta love seeing Cronin still in the mix here. His offense doesn't put his players...
Can we just not do that? No. No. You'll see when he coaches at Louisville next year how bad he really is. I know some of y'all ain't watching these late-night games. Your boys watching these late-night games. Ever since Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, and that other dude left, and then Johnny Juzang left, it's been completely downhill nosedive for them.
Dude, those guys were some studs, though. So give credit to
But it's
Steve
not
Alford for
that
recruiting
wasn't
them.
his players.
So he said his offense doesn't put his players in positions to succeed, and we aren't talented enough to make up for it. Jury's out on that one. Cincy Huffman would be met with an argument that would further my frustration, so I plead the fifth. That is very, very much relatable. John Parrish, they're 1 year away from being an NCAA tournament team. Next year will be fun. We wish it was this year, actually. And there's still a possibility that it could be this year. Don't lose hope yet. There is still a shot. We'll get to that later. Control the ball and play the game, and you win. Plain and simple, 19 of 25 turnovers were forced or just stupid, literally gave the ball away. I think he meant unforced or just stupid. Yes, I would agree. A lot of those were very unforced turnovers. Dobby. Home field advantage does not apply to the Bearcats. Yeah, pretty much. We should talk about that at some point too, because that's a little rough. Gary says, got to get Vic going again. That guy lost his mojo for sure. James Sanford, NIT, here we come. Tough. Let's not do that one. Greg Hardy, the damn burst tonight. I did like coach's comments after the game. This is on me. Don't blame the players. Blame the head coach. We did not have the team prepared tonight. Meanie, it's called being outcoached. And the last one of the night, M. Gleason, you aren't the first to succumb to the pressure. Hang in there. And that is an Iowa State fan. Thank you, Iowa State fans. We very much did not enjoy having Iowa State in our arena tonight. That was a lot. Houston, now that we've just demoralized ourselves thinking about all that, 10 in a row. We officially cracked the streak open at double digits, baby. Just crack another one of those open. It's tough because it felt like the Bearcats have been very close to unlocking this one. And unfortunately, another one slips away from you. And unfortunately, it was the one at home. And you still have to play them on their home court, which is not going to be any easier. Houston definitely looks like a world beater. They do look like they have some flaws that you can take advantage of, but they are very well-rounded. They have a lot of talented players. They are very physical. Every guy in the team looks, plays, and feels like an NBA player. So it is very tough to overcome that when all those guys will just out-tough you before anything else, any statistic, any measurement, any vertical, I don't care. They will just out-hustle you. And so very hard to overcome that. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Houston game?
This was a little bit more of a classic 2024 Bearcats Big 12 performance. Got down by a lot early in the game, somehow fought their way back to keep it close at halftime, took a slight lead in the second half, and then just, took a pretty big lead in the second half, actually, 8-10 points. And then Houston fought their way back into it and closed it out. But, this is just what it's become this year, unfortunately. We have all the fight in the world. We were able to play defense with the big boys, but I just think, Justin, it's just the 1, 2, 3 guys that most of the teams in our league have better than us, and that when they're able to play better than us on any given night, they just are able to overcome what our team can do collectively. And I don't want to just take the cop out and be like, oh, Houston and Iowa State and Kansas, and at some point you're going to have to win some of these games and overcome the fact that you don't have as good of players as the other team sometimes. And you could say that maybe the Bearcats should have won this game. I will point out that UC, according to the Ion College Basketball Podcast, that UC is now 1-24 in their last 25 games against top 5 teams. And if my Cincinnati math tells me correctly, that only win against the top 5 team was against Syracuse on a neutral court at the Big East tournament. So I don't know. Xavier fans, clip this if you want. But I don't know when the last time we beat a top 5 team at home was. And maybe we just haven't had many coming into the building,
That's fair. That is a good point.
Usually we were the one that was in the top 5, not the other school.
That's a fair point.
But I do think it was just, and credit to Houston. They do what Houston does, and they came back and won. I do think, though, Justin, that this was before tonight, this was a sense of optimism. Weirdly enough, both Iowa State games for football and basketball just made you like want to reconsider life altogether. I think the Bearcats were favored in both games and
Yep.
just got completely demoralized in both games. So Iowa State,
Everything crashed and burned after that too.
yeah, Iowa State, you're on our shit list, dude. Like
Yep.
you are on our list. Like we don't like y'all. Okay, pretty plain and simple. We'll see you in baseball season, but um, Houston, though, Justin, I can't really get mad about. Once again, I can't get mad about losing to a top 5 team at home. But if you were to really win a game that could solidify your tournament chances, you missed your opportunity with this one.
Yep. No, and I mean, I think that's exactly right. I think one of the big things I've noticed that you kind of touched on, Juwan Roberts in this game, 20 points. You can add another guy to the list that either made or tied his season high against the Bearcats. Just another one of those. Just add them to the list. It's become very long at this point. I think we're in double digits. With that said, I think, like you said, there's a lot of guys on a lot of teams who just have enough every single night, who are the consistent guys who step up. And I think the thing that felt like a strength at the beginning of the season is now starting to feel like a crippling weakness. You had, if one guy was off, you had another guy on. I think what's starting to happen is you're having one guy on every night, and that's it. You at the beginning of the season, you had 2 or 3 guys on. And granted, against a lot of these are against cupcakes, but even through some of the more difficult games that you had 2 or 3 or 4 guys, even in double digits, who are really pulling it together and who are playing a solid game. And there was solid contributions from your bench in this game, in the Iowa State game. It's you have one, maybe 2 guys who are really out there doing something, and then the rest are kind of just part of the team. They're kind of just throwing in a bucket here or there, but you don't really have anybody stepping up. In this game, you had Jizzle, John Newman, and Dan Skillings all in triple digits. But realistically, your biggest contribution was from John Newman, who had a double-double, 10 and 10. You had Dan Skillings with 13, but 2 of 7 from 3. You have Seamus going 2 of 6. You have Vic going 0 for 3 from 3 in this game, which is just bewildering. But it's, again, I think it comes back to that thing where, like, how many points are you getting out of these guys when they're on the floor? How effective are they? I really would like to go into a little bit further deep dive in the box plus minus at this point in the season, because I think everybody's kind of all over the place. But like I said, Houston has those guys that are go-to guys that are always going to be there night in, night out. Like Jamal Shed threw up a shit ton of buckets, missed a lot, but still found a way to give them 16 points, still found the way to give them a way to have a lot of, solid defensive plays across his 38 minutes in that game. And I think that's just kind of the differences. Like I said, in this kind of game, somebody's going to out hustle you. You're going to do some things where you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, but 30% from 3, 72% from the line. The Bearcats kind of mustered enough to stay in the game. And of course, that's why it was a 5-point game at the end. But it just feels like you're so close. You kind of get, it's another one of these games where you got sort of that DNA spiral and your little game flow. It's close, and then it widens out, and then it's close, and then it widens out, and then it gets close right at the end of the game, and then free throws, and it starts to open up again. With what, like 2 minutes to go in this game, I think this was a 1-possession game. This was super close. You had it. It was, Houston 61, Bearcats 59 with 141 to go. So you're within a shot. You're a trip to the free throw line from tying this game. And then Houston is going to Houston, and they're going to crack it open again. And then that's going to be game. And unfortunately, night in, night out, we just don't have that guy. We have Dan Skillings, who's doing a lot every single night, but we don't have that set of guys. We don't have 2 or 3 go-to guys that we can rely on. We don't have the guys who are stepping up and then just giving like 10, 15, 20 like they were earlier in the season. And I think, unfortunately, that's going to continue to bite you, and it's going to continue to wear on you as the season goes on. I think the other troublesome part is now you also have CJ Frederick back. CJ played 2 minutes against Houston. I don't know how many he played tonight against Iowa State. I'd have to look at that real fast, but you know, that's one of those situations where you need that guy who's coming back now into your lineup to contribute a little bit more. And according to ESPN, CJ had 16 minutes tonight. Not really getting a ton there, but again, you're still trying to work that back in, and you're just trying to find some kind of flow. You really can't blame the transfer waivers anymore. You can't really blame injuries quite as much anymore. Vic has supposedly been healthy for a handful of games. He's been back for 5 straight games. CJ's now back. You have a 10-man rotation of the guys that you expected to have playing, and nothing's really working against these top teams. We'll see how it goes against UCF, but in these big games, it's just not putting enough together. You're not doing enough to win.
So I just pulled up I want to name a quick MVP and needs improvement player. I don't want to be too mean. Our needs improvement player of the first half of the Big 12 season, obviously it's Victor Locken. Justin, on the score app, they have a plus minus for every game for players. Victor Locken's plus minus in the BYU game, plus 16. Pretty good. And we can attest to that. He was great. He had the dagger that with that 3 that sealed that win at the end of that game. Since that game, his highest plus minus in a game is 4 in the TCU game, and he's had 5 negative performances in that metric. With Houston, he was being his worst. He was a minus 15 in that game. So not great. Dan Skillings, on the other hand, I'm pulling up his plus minus. Dan has been pretty positive in most of these games. His worst one was that Oklahoma game where he was a -7, but he's been he was a +9 against Houston, +6 against Iowa State tonight, +7 against Texas Tech. And I just calculated this earlier. He's been averaging 13 points a game in Big 12 play, with those only 2 outliers being that Oklahoma game and the Texas game. He's really been good in this conference schedule. And we talked about, before the conference schedule started, we need somebody to be a step up and be a consistent scorer. That's been Dan Skillings for you. I mean, he's poured it in different ways, taken over games in different ways, but he's really been able to step up when his team has needed him. And it's, you can't pin all your hopes on a guy that is coming off the bench. Kansas has clearly done that with Johnny Furphy, and looks like UC is doing the same with Dan Skillings. Weird that he's not starting right now. I think you probably could do a little bit better for yourself if you did decide to start him. But I do think that there's unfortunately a lot just in the middle there. And other than Jizzle, who's had a couple good games, no one has really stepped up. And just look at all the games. Look at your thread, Justin, of all the dudes who stepped up and became their team's forever leading scorer on the night that they played UC. It's just got to take sometimes some of those special performances to win in this league, because all the teams are pretty close. And unfortunately, that side of the ball has been more on the with the opponents this year than it has been with UC.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the thing on Dan starting. I completely agree. I think at this point it's one of those, I don't know how you say it. I wouldn't say meaningless, but I'm going to say meaningless for the point I'm trying to make. It is a meaningless point to have him start or not. I think it definitely would say something to the effect of, we've made a decision. Dan is a certified starter. The guy had 32 minutes against Houston. He had 32 minutes tonight against Iowa State. He is playing starting minutes. The only person who had more minutes tonight than him against Houston was John and Seamus with 35 and 33. He is playing a starting lineup minutes. It's just the fact. I think he's certified, or he's solidified his spot there. And I think, if anything, it might even be a strategy right now when you have all these guys going out. You wait till the other team's bench comes in, and then you throw in who has been your best player to play against the bench. That is a strategy that some teams use, and I think we're using it to try to gas some of their second teams. But like I said, he's playing a lot of minutes, and I think that it's a legitimate factor that he's getting that. And that's really what we wanted to see. I think Jizzle, we've seen an uptick in his minutes too. And this will be the last point I make on this before we move over to our bracketology. But, between Jizzle and Dan, I think I've seen enough flashes and I've seen enough that makes me feel confident in them. Seamus has been very hot and cold. However, it is nice to see with Jizzle, with Dan, with Seamus, you have guys that will be coming back. Hopefully, transfer portal and all the other shit that we could be worrying about far down the pipeline, but we're going to knock on wood and pray no issues happen there. You have these guys coming back next year. The guys that have been the best for you this season are all coming back and are all young. And that's a thing that I'm going to take forward as a very big positive, because you're still going to have at least 2 years of eligibility with Dan. He's going to be a junior next year. You're going to have Jizzle with 3 more years of eligibility. You're going to add Rayvon Griffith into that. Unfortunately, you're going to lose a guy like John Newman, but hopefully Josh Reed could step up into that position and maybe take over some of that hustle ball type of mentality. Maybe not a starter, but can contribute off the bench that way. And then with Vic, with Aziz, hopefully you're going to get some more solid minutes out of these guys and they can kind of turn this into a thing that starts rolling. But you've got some younger guys who are playing meaningful minutes and they're a little bit of that core of your offense. If they come back, you're only aging that. And I think that's better for your team than if you have a guy like CJ Frederick or a guy like John Newman who are your offense. And then you don't get to return that. And you have to find that next year with these other guys.
One more thought, and then we can move on. Were these last 2 games kind of a product of the other 2 teams having long, athletic big men and really just taking our big men out of the game, and 2, not getting our smaller ball lineups in because we have to play against those bigger lineups? And then when our big men are not as effective right now, it just kind of all rolls together downhill like that. Do you think that's possibly what it could be from just because from reading game logs and stats, Josh Reed has only had 3 combined minutes in the last 2 games. And, like you said, CJ only had 2 against Houston and 18 tonight. But I do think there's something to that, just because, you can't really play a small ball lineup when you're trying to defend against, obviously, Houston, who's got dudes and guards and big men everywhere. And, Iowa State is pretty long for themselves as well. So I'm kind of wondering if that was the thought and we just didn't have the depth and the athleticism to really match up.
I'll say it this way. I think against Houston, that's an arguable point. And I think that Houston is definitely going to gas you and you're going to need to kind of play Houston ball to try to win. However, against Iowa State, I think you shot yourself in the foot. I think a lot of those wounds are self-inflicted. And I think that this game is a product of poor discipline in that game. I think it's unfortunately Iowa State is a very good team, not to take any credit away from them, but I think it's just one of those ones that they got the better of you and clearly you were not ready for that game. However, against Houston, against some of these other longer, more athletic teams, we do also have to remember we are coming up from the AAC. You are bringing some of these guys whose talent level was not recruited for the Big 12 and asking them to play in the Big 12. On top of that, you're bringing other guys who have not played in Power 5 conferences and asking them to play at a Power 5 level. Whereas these guys that are playing in Houston have clearly been playing at a Power 5 level, have been playing at a Final Four level for quite some time. Iowa State is looking to go to their 3rd straight tournament. These are tough teams that are ranked for a reason, and they're tough Big 12 teams. On top of that, they bring the experience, they bring the veteran leaders, they bring that heat that unfortunately Cincinnati just doesn't really have right now. So I think that void, that gap between these teams is still a little bit too large to really say it's one thing or another. I think, unfortunately, it's the way it is, but both these teams are better than your team, and that's just how both of these games went. Speaking of other teams that are going to be better than the Cincinnati Bearcats, hopefully it's not 64 teams. Bracketology, baby. The Bearcats window, as we've said, is fading. And I think it's a little bit of a tough one to try. It's a tough pill to swallow, but you have 7 games left now on your schedule. Like we've said before, upcoming you have UCF on the road, Oklahoma State at home, TCU and Houston on the road, Kansas State at home, Oklahoma on the road, and then West Virginia at home to finish off the regular season. In that stretch, we've said the target is 8. You didn't do yourself any favors against Houston or Iowa State. Of course, those would have been big wins, but you have 2 games coming up that are definitely take care of business territory. And, you know, I don't know. You have to find 4 more wins. And that's getting a little bit more difficult when you still have Houston, Kansas State, and Oklahoma left on your schedule. So, with that said, it's going to be tough. Steve, bracketology, hit me with it.
Yeah, so UCF has officially lost tonight. So they will be coming into this game having lost 4 of their last 5 games, with the only one being a win at home against Oklahoma. So make what you want out of that. But the Cats really just need a win on Saturday. It is still a quad 1 game, even though UCF is 67th in the net right now. Probably will fall a little bit with that loss to BYU tonight. I do think that you probably need to win 6, and whether that's 1 or 2 wins in the conference tournament, you probably need 6. Probably need to get. We're at 15 wins right now. You need to get to 21, I'd say, just to really give yourself some breathing room, because unfortunately you didn't get any good wins out of conference, and your out of conference strength schedule is in F territory. It's in the 300s. It's not good. Like, we played Detroit Mercy. They are, Justin, you were joking about the Detroit Pistons of the Big 12. Detroit Mercy is the Detroit Pistons of the NCAA. I don't know if they've won a game yet. And we played them like second on our schedule this year, so they're kind of dragging us down.
I'm gonna double check that too, because
please do. Yes.
Yep, still have not won a game. 0 in 26.
Good Lord.
Wolf dog.
Yeah, that's bad. So the Cats really do need some help now. They probably need just a couple of more of these teams to fall off the bubble, including that other team across town that somehow is on the bubble, even though they have 10 losses. We're joining you soon. Don't worry. We're probably gonna get to 10. But here's the thing, though. You probably, like you said, win at UCF, win at home against Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and West Virginia. That's 4 right there. And if you can get 2 more in the conference tournament, maybe even 1, that's 5. You get to 20. I think 20 can do it. 20 and 12, 20 and 13. I think that can do. Well, it would be 20 and 12, but or 21 and 12. 20, whatever.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, 2011. Let's just keep it regular season. Let's not make the math harder here.
Yeah.
Man, you guys should watch the show on YouTube, just because there are a bunch of clippable moments if you do not like Cincinnati. So,
yeah, for real.
They say haters listen twice as long as the lovers. So
this is true.
I think, though, Justin, to be safe and to really give yourself some breathing room, you probably need 5. Whether that's 4 in the regular season, 1 in the conference tournament, however you want to mash it. Or you just win all 4 games in the conference tournament and win the conference tournament. Like, if you want to get that auto bid, go ahead and do it. But they're rapidly losing. Like, either one of those last 2 games, probably, I don't want to say definitely, but probably would have locked up their chances at getting into the big dance. Just like a top 10 home win. It doesn't matter whether it's in conference or not. Top 10 home win, and you take care of business the rest of the way. You got to feel pretty good about what they've done. Yeah. It's also just that, the other, it's probably going to be a 10-bid league this year. And if you look at Bracket Matrix, the matrix that combines all of the bracketology from around the globe together, and puts it into one sheet, UC is literally the last at-large team hanging on by a thread. And that was before tonight's game against Iowa State. So by the end of the week, they will probably fall out of Bracket Matrix. BartTorvik.com does really like the Bearcats. They say they're a 9 seed. Bart Torvik, let me know what you got, because I want some of it. And it says there's a 68% chance, even after tonight's game, that they will still make the tournament. Now, I don't doubt, obviously, that they have some quality wins, quality road wins as well, which will definitely help them, give them that net boost. But I just don't see if they can't take care of business and if they finish with less than 20 wins, I don't really see the path.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think you could squeak it in regular season. I think it's still possible to squeak it with 19, but it's the wins that you get that matter. And it's the losses that you have that matter. I think it's going to be a really, really specific layout over the course of the next few games if you hit 19 about who you're winning to, who you're losing to at UCF, Oklahoma State. If you beat both of those, but then you lose at TCU, but then beat Houston on the road, I think there's something workable in there. But if even beat a Houston on the road, but you lose to Oklahoma State at home, God forbid something like that happens, I think you just see the floor fall out beneath you. It's so, like you said, I think that security blanket for me is probably more at the 20 mark. You have to hit that 20, but you do have to have a win against TCU and you have to have one against Oklahoma. You have to do that in that mark. And then you still, at 20, if you're sitting at 15 right now, like you said, that requires 5 wins. I'm looking at the winnable games right now that I still see as winnable, even after what we've just watched. Still see as the winnable games at UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, West
It's
Virginia.
winnable.
That's 4.
Kansas
That's 4.
State at home.
I'd like to say Kansas State. Kansas State, I think, is a better team than people give them credit for. They've certainly not shown their strengths this season in comparative to last season. They also lost some key guys, but Kansas State still makes me nervous. Houston and Oklahoma, those are 2 tough ranked teams on the road that have already gotten the better of you this season. I don't see how you win those games, but if you find wins in those 5 other games against the UCF, Oklahoma State, TCU, Kansas State, and West Virginia, I think you make it. I think if you lose the games you're supposed to lose and you win the games that you're supposed to win, I think you make it. But that elusive 19 feels a lot weaker now when you don't have the Houston and Iowa State at home, when you don't have the Oklahoma or the Texas at home. You don't have some of these other wins. And I think we've said this earlier in the season, and now we're really going to start to feel it. Some of those close games are really going to start to hurt you, and you're going to wish you had those back. But unfortunately, you don't get them back. And so I think it's going to be a really tough window. I have not lost all my faith. I do think that if they can hit the 4 mark, it's possible, but you got to do some work in the conference tournament. You have to put in some work. And I'm talking you got to win 2 games, have to be a 1 possession game in the third, or you have to win the 3rd game for you to be considered, because that will get you, if you can hit 20 in the regular season and you can get up to 23, 22, 23, I think you're going to feel good, but you got to do some work in the Big 12 tournament. And that, of course, all teams are going to be full tilt, but you might catch some teams sleeping in the Big 12 tournament, because you're talking like, you said this is going to be a 10 bid league. You're going to have some teams that are going to be kind of put in cruise control because they're not going to worry about gassing their players in the Big 12 tournament if they're already a lock. They're going to be worried about making sure their guys are ready to go for the tournament. They might, sit back some of their better players, but, I don't think any team's also just going to take the night off. They're still going to play their full speed. So I don't know. I was really hopeful before tonight's game. I have felt that dashed in half after watching what I watched tonight, unfortunately. And I think it's going to be tough, but there's still an outside shot.
You know what you can always have hope in, Justin?
Yeah. What is it?
That Charlie Hustle will one day bring out the Bearcats t-shirts. We're still, crossing our fingers, dotting our I's, crossing our T's, asking for forgiveness, hoping that one day, eventually, Cincinnati will be on the glorious charliehustle.com website. Go check out that website, by the way. It is pretty beautiful. But for right now, you can support a Bearcat on their website, as they do have some Travis Kelce gear that you can go buy. I know He's in Chiefs colors, and some of y'all don't like when Cincinnati Bearcats accounts are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs as if probably our most famous football alumni doesn't just play for the team and date like the biggest international pop star in the
Just
world right now.
accept it.
Like, come on, man. Like, I get it. One, I get it, but two, what are we doing there? Back to Charlie Hustle, though. We've been talking about the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. They will be at the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. So if you're interested in going out to the Big 12 tournament to support the basketball, go support Charlie Hustle there. But if you're thinking about staying home and just watching on TV, order your Charlie Hustle gear at home. Use that promo code 101215. That's 101215 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase at charliehustle.com. Please support the show. Please support the 1012 network. Go buy a Kansas State shirt because you know what? You like the color purple and you don't care who knows it. Shout out to Elder. If you like you're allowed to like other teams in this league, just not when they're playing UC. And you can get those other teams' gear at Charlie Hustle. I'll say this for them, the official provider of the 1012 network. Go shop there. Promo code 101215.
Yeah, and maybe, you lose a bet with a coworker who happens to go to Iowa State and you have to buy them Charlie Hustle gear. Not me, but sweeping the Knights. We're off to Disney World, baby. The Bearcats are going to try their best to go into Orlando and take care of business. This is still a take care of business game. It is feeling like our uppityness going into this game has definitely faded because these teams feel very evenly matched from what we've seen record-wise, schedule-wise, statistically. However, we all know that the Bearcats are better than UCF. Sorry. Oh, too much credit. Too much credit to them. The Hilton Knight managers. We all know they're better. We know they're better. You just need to go into Orlando and you need to do the same thing that you did to them when they were in your house. You need to find a double-digit win. I think that in football, style points matter. Basketball, you have a lot of games. If you can find a way at any point to put in some style points on any teams in the Big 12, it's going to be this game in Oklahoma State. But put on some style points on the road if you can. I'm not going to say it's easy. Even Kansas could not go. Number 2 or whatever they were, Kansas could not go into Orlando and make some style points. In fact, they lost. Still credit to UCF for that. Find a win. Find a win. It's very simple, straightforward.
Got to find a way. Like I said earlier, UCF has now lost 4 of their last 5. Seem to be in a little bit of a free fall even after winning that Kansas game. I do think that could be a tough game for the Bearcats again because UCF was missing a couple starters when they came up to Cincinnati. I don't know if you've been following to this story from our friend Dali Drama, Justin, but apparently UCF has been flying commercial this year. And so they just have not really had like much legs once they get off the plane. And apparently UCF's women's team has been flying charter and they finally won a game in Lubbock. So shout out to the UCF women. They were, I think they were pretty much winless before that game. So, but hey, the women did it against UCF. Why can't the men? That's all I'm saying. Don't fear the fronds. Don't worry about the basketball environment. You just, I mean, Dan Skilling said it after the home UCF game, so I'll say it for the road one. It's a must win. Got to take care of business. Got to go win it. If you want any opportunity, and it's not like it would be even a bad loss, but it's just an opportunity to add a quad 1, maybe eventually a quad 2 win to your resume.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you mentioned this before. UCF, of course, played tonight against BYU, an 88-90 loss. Very, very close game. This is a game that BYU cracked open to a 19-point lead in the second half, and UCF still managed to muster their way back, but too little too late. Massive run at the end just wasn't enough for them to overcome BYU on the road. Still a ranked BYU, by the way. But here's the thing that I look at for this game. If you look at their last 5, let's just compare the last 5 for these two teams. Of course, we got the better of them. So that's a commonality there. But UCF beat West Virginia, lost to us on the road, lost to Baylor at home, beat Oklahoma at home, and then lost to Texas Tech on the road, and then lost to BYU on the road. They've lost to teams that we've beat. They've beat some teams that we've lost to. It's a little bit of some evenness there, but I think the consensus here is we already have had the advantage over top of them, and we've seen that we've figured them out and how to play our style that ends up winning us a game, and we figured out how to crack it open. I think you just have to do that again in the same way that you did last time. You have to dominate them on the boards. You have to make sure that you're taking care of the ball. Clearly, that is an issue that you need to overcome. If you have more than 10 turnovers in this game, I think everyone should get 10,000 slaps on the wrist from a ruler from Wes Miller himself. Take care of the ball. Make sure you lock down their high point scorers. Jalen Sellers, 17 points a game, I think is what he's at over the course of this season. You got to keep him in check. But other than that, just play Bearcats basketball, take good shots, be effective at the free throw line, win the rebound battle, do the fundamental things right. And I think this one should be in the book. Easy, said and done. Go on to Oklahoma State at home, a game that hopefully is a layup, but we all know probably won't be.
Well, it would be also nice too if they could get Ibrahima Diallo to foul out after playing only 6 minutes and putting up like the Tony Snell game again. So
yeah, I'd take some zeros and 6 fouls in 6 minutes. That'd be nice. Or 5 fouls in 6 minutes.
I do think that was really what allowed UC to come back in that game, even though UCF put up a pretty great fight in that first half without some starters in that game. That was what allowed UC to come back and play that small ball lineup, is because Diallo went out. So hopefully they can either try to force that issue again, try to get Diallo in foul trouble early, get your small ball lineup out there because it's worked. But Johnny Dawkins and UCF, they've been known this year to try and really just muck it up on the defensive end. Obviously, they gave up 90 to BYU, but BYU at home, it's like the basket is like like a size bigger on each side of the rim that BYU shooting on. So they pour it in there. They didn't against the Bearcats, but usually they pour it in. So like I said, must win. No other analysis or explanation needed other than that.
Here's your parting thoughts for UCF. They are currently favored 53% to 47% in the matchup predictor. We all know that's false because the Bearcats are going to win by 50. But I'll add this. If any of you have nothing to do this weekend, according to Vivid Seats, there are tickets as low as $2 in the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando. So if you got nothing to do, take a quick flight, hop over the pond, go to Orlando, maybe visit Mickey Mouse himself, take the kids. I don't know. It's $2 a ticket. Go support the Cats on the road. I don't know. That's all I got to say. Steve, we have a very special little emoji down here at the bottom. This is a custom one, so happy to have this added. It's our Lord and Savior, Jurassic Park. Jason Kelsey himself. We didn't get to talk this last week because we were swamped with other stuff because there's so much basketball coverage happening right now. Football schedule. It's out, baby.
That's right. It is.
It's out. What are the early thoughts?
We knew about what Cincinnati's non-conference schedule would be, but that's only 3 games. That's only a quarter of the picture. Now we know what the rest of the picture is. So, Justin, let's do the Stephen Godfrey bit and read the schedule on air for the people. We're going to start off at home against Towson, and then next week at home against Pitt. We're going to bring out the trophy, the River City Rivalry Trophy, and hopefully swing it again in Cincinnati's direction. Going up about an hour to Oxford, Ohio on Saturday, September 14th to play at Miami.
And take back another trophy.
Please bring back the bell. I can't deal with that. That's just...
No.
We can't.
Inexcusable.
Yeah, we can't have that happen again. Scott, take care of business.
I
Do
will
it for me.
fire a gun. No.
Water gun. Then the Big 12 schedule starts with Houston at home. Willie Fritz, his first conference game, will be at Nippert Stadium, a place where unfortunately he's been successful in his last game there. Then Cincinnati makes their first trip to Lubbock on the football gridiron. They will play at Texas Tech Saturday, September 28th. Get a bye weekend. Fortunately for your man's wedding weekend. And then the next week, they will do a road trip to visit some old friends when they go down to UCF and play at, it says here, FBC Mortgage Stadium. I know it as the bounce house or the house that shall be condemned because apparently the supports are kind of bad there. So why else is it shaken on TV if the supports aren't bad and people should not be in that stadium? So
I would just like to say, Steve, if this is one thing that the world has taught me, it's this. If you schedule a wedding in advance and it just so happens to fall on a bye week, it's meant to be. Your marriage is blessed by the gods.
That's right. And my brother, who plays football for the University of Dayton, it was just announced last week that they also have a bye on that same
wonderful.
week. So we are really just threading the needle, baby, right in there.
That is 2 for 2.
I know. And hopefully the Bengals are not playing that weekend at home, and then it'll be 3 for 3. So
it's a good thing. Otherwise, I'd have to skip your wedding. So,
Well, yeah. I'm on Friday. It's on Sunday. You got to start drinking 2 days early. I completely understand. You can drink at the wedding, though. How about that? Then the Bearcats will return home for a homecoming against my local team here, Arizona State. First time playing them in a while. And then, Justin, we're going to unofficially announce this. Just float it out there. See if any of the people out in Boulder, Colorado shoot it down like a weather balloon. I think the second annual Viva La Cats road trip may have to be to Boulder, Colorado, as the Bearcats take on the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime at Folsom Field. The place of many a dead concert. I've listened to a few in my day, and maybe we'll just have to go for a Bearcats game. I've had more than a few people, Justin, at least 3 or 4 text me and ask, should we go? And I'm like, I don't know if I could work that out, but it's at least on the calendar. We'll see.
I think it has to happen. I got to see Prime, baby. That's all I'm going for. I'm not going for the beautiful state of Colorado and the sights and the smells and the vapors. I'm going for Prime, baby.
Apparently, you can reserve a hotel there that is specifically smoking. So
non-smoking or non-schmoking?
Non-smoking.
Oh,
so
very interesting.
Apparently, that's a thing there. I didn't know, but
no smoke.
No smoke. That's right. Then the next week, come back to Nippert after traveling to Colorado. It's either going to be a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday home game against our new rivals, West Virginia. Somehow not on rivalry weekend. We'll talk about that later. We'll keep going, though. November 16th, Saturday, we are going to Ames, Iowa to visit those same dreaded, hated Iowa State
bastards.
Just
call them what they are, bastards.
We really don't like them. And if Cyclone Larry decides to be there, it's going to be a taser off. So I'm ready for it.
I'm going to tase his nuts if I see him.
Yeah, that's right. And then we're going to finish our season with the Purple Double. We're going to go to the Castle in Manhattan, Kansas to face off against Kansas State and then host TCU on November 30th.
In what is known as the Cincinnati Bearcats' most hated, dreaded rival.
Rival. We don't like you. They don't like us.
We hate those horny frogs.
Maybe we'll rush the field against them.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll rush the field for a 5-7 record.
I was going to say 3-9 again, but let's go for that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be there, but maybe you'll be there again to watch the Bearcats finish the season 3-9. But
maybe.
Justin, I did want to ask you though, real quick. Early thoughts on the record, just with that, me reading it off to you. Obviously, you only get 6 home games this year, but this schedule has been rated as one of, if not the easiest schedule in the league. Yep. On the other hand, I will present to you There are some media outlets, not the 10-12 network because they are an outlet of repute, but other media outlets have predicted the Bearcats to once again be power ranked last or finish last in the league already. Way too early.
Fantastic.
But um, I ask you, good sir, your record prediction as of February 14th.
As of February 14th, Bearcats are going bowling, baby.
Okay.
Bearcats are going bowling. And this is how it happens in a very fast, summarized way. If you lose any of the first 4 games, fire Scott Satterfield. You got Towson, who doesn't even register on anyone's radar as a football team. You have Pitt, who he knows how to play and should beat again. You have Miami, who, if you lose to for 2 years in a row, there are things that should not be said on this podcast that will happen. Houston, they've just fired Dana Holgerson.
Because Scott Satterfield beat him. That's why they fired him.
Scott Satterfield beat him. So beat them again with their new coach that should not beat the Bearcats. 4-0 to start the season. Should be easy. Should be straightforward. It is the easiest part of the easiest Big 12 schedule. Take care of business. Beat those teams. Texas Tech, UCF, Arizona State. Go 2-1 in that stretch. Beat Arizona. Beat UCF. Realistically, you should be bowling by the time you go to Boulder. Bowl by Boulder.
I like
bowl by Boulder
Bowl
to enjoy your bowl in Boulder.
Bowl
That's
by
how
Boulder. Where you can enjoy multiple bowls in Boulder.
You can enjoy multiple bowls in Boulder. West Virginia, I think they're going to be improving upon what they had this year. I think they're going to be a solid team. I think that is going to be a very difficult game. I think that, honestly, I would not have said this past year. I will say this year. I think West Virginia is probably going to be one of your hardest teams on this schedule. I mean, you look across the schedule, it is very easy. Colorado, I don't know what you're going to get. West Virginia, I think it's going to be difficult. Iowa State, Kansas State, split them. TCU, hopefully you can beat them. We don't know exactly what you're going to get out of them this year. But overall, bare minimum, you're bowling. I think there's an outside shot to get a 7 or 8 win season there. But you have to be bowling by the end of the schedule. Otherwise, I don't want to call this out too early, but seriously, not joking, you have to think long and hard about that buyout. Just going to put that out there. This is an easy schedule. You have to take advantage of some of these teams early. And if you don't, what are you building here?
And I will say, I mean, we did give him crap after the season when that PR guy who's a Bearcats fan who can never remember your name. I'm sorry, sir. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but he made some good points about how Sat did not have any real message or marketing vision for this team. And what have they done in this offseason? He's consistently had transfers and himself out for media and been trying to talk through what the guys are going to do in this offseason. We've had 2 episodes of The Strong Shall Reign, the new mini series from the football team, with some really vulnerable interviews from guys like Corey Kiner, Mason Fletcher, Evan Prater, the guys that you know are going to lead this team. And I thought Evan was incredibly vulnerable in his episode, talking about how his shoulder was hurting too much for him to throw. So that's why he decided to switch to wide receiver, because he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to keep hurting himself, hurting his team. And that's why he switched. And you saw it on that video of him leading his teammates in the weight room and really trying to make sure that they know that last year was not acceptable. And, you know, it's easy to say, I forgot to mention Dante as well. Dante was in the first video. I would like to at least know when the next video is coming out. So maybe the social team can work on that, like get fans excited about the next upcoming video. But this was something that I really liked about Luke Fickell's first year at UC is, like, you know, those early season workouts at like 5 a.m. They had Shark and other people out there filming them and filming Luke talking to the guys. Now, maybe if Sat would have done that in his first year, maybe it would have looked a little bit different. But I think they're trying to obviously play up and look on the fact that they had a season that does not meet UC's expectations last year, and trying to respond and show us what's going on inside the program. And that is exactly what I asked them to do. Show me what's going on inside. Show me what you guys are doing to help fix the problems that you had last year. And, we've talked about just some of the roster movement and such, but like Justin, that indoor practice facility is not going to be ready until 2025. So these guys have been outside for all of these workouts and practices, dude. Like they are just fighting through the cold to try and win more football games. And I obviously, that's like any dad from the 90s will love that. But I do think that, they've answered some of the concerns that we've had for the football program. And maybe it's just too far for some. Maybe it's not ever going to be enough for some people. Obviously, we know what it's like to be the guy after the guy. Alabama fans are learning about that. Ohio State fans know what that's like. It's hard, man, to be the guy after the guy. And I do think that Luke Fickell is the best coach in this program's history. It's hard to be the guy after that dude, as Ryan Day is learning, as Kalen DeBoer is going to learn. There's been countless other people, other times throughout history in football, weirdly enough, football, I mean, basketball too, but it's hard to follow a legend. And I don't, maybe you won't call Luke Fickell a legend yet. I don't know if you'll build him the statue, but we haven't built Brian Kelly a statue, but it's hard, man. And we saw in Butch Jones' first year, even with all those good players that Brian Kelly had, he still went 4-8. He probably could have done better than that. Still went 4-8, was able to bounce back the next year. I think the hope is that you can return this offensive line that you had. You were able to do pretty well on the offensive side of the ball. And I think if Tyson Veit is able to bring in his 3-3-5 and really shore up that pass defense, maybe they flip a couple of those close losses to wins. And obviously they were outmatched in games against West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Probably Oklahoma, even though the defense did keep it a little bit closer there.
Right.
I think it's not unrealistic to have, like you said, 6 or 7 wins in September and October, because I will say November is tough, man.
Yep.
Like West Virginia, going to Ames, going to Manhattan, 3 straight weeks, dude. Like if we win one of those games, I will be happy with that.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about what TCU is going to look like this year. They might be starting a freshman at quarterback. They had a weird year last year, and obviously they're going to try and rebound and get back to what they were in 2021. Obviously, I don't think they have all the players to match that, but I don't think you want to enter that TCU game needing to win for bowl eligibility. Get that done early. Try and get that done, like you said, bowl by bowl. I think it's achievable. It's just the matter of whether the guys you've brought in the portal and on the coaching staff are able to do what that goal is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's makes a lot of sense. I think that's going to be our tagline. I think we're going to take that all the way
bowl
through.
By Boulder, baby.
We're going to take that all the way through up to day one. We're going to take that through every single one of these games until we hit Boulder. Bowl by Boulder. It rolls off the tongue.
Bowl by
Boulder.
I like it.
I mean, it's. I think this is the biggest thing that I come to for this whole season is you have to show improvement on last season. Of course, 3-9, very, very far below expectations. However, 3-9, you played some tough teams in that schedule too. It was still an easier schedule, but you played some tough teams. I think with this season coming up, you clearly have a weak schedule. You clearly have some teams that you should take advantage of. Get business done. Take care of business in the games that you need to. Welcome in Arizona State. Give them the Big 12 welcome. We've been seasoned already. Give Arizona State the Big 12 welcome. Take care of business and get bowling, baby. That's all that matters this season. Just get bowling. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just get bowling.
Get busy living or get busy bowling.
How about we do both? Get
That's
busy
right.
bizzing.
Get busy bizzing. That's right.
Get busy bizzing and get
busy
on
business
on that Bearcats Sports Wrapup, baby. That's all we care about.
Standing on business, baby. We standing on business. Yes, sir. And we are standing on the Bearcats Sports Wrapup right now, and we're going to get into it. Women's basketball, like I mentioned earlier in the show, defeated UCF in Orlando for the season sweep before falling to BYU over the weekend. They are playing at Kansas on Wednesday and wearing their pink jerseys, and they will host Senior Day Saturday against TCU. If you're able to go support the program and support them as they play their final Saturday home game well, not their final Saturday home game, but they are honoring the seniors this upcoming Saturday. So please go support them. Baseball. Baseball. Did you know, Justin, that the Bearcats are playing baseball in February? They open their season against Jacksonville this upcoming weekend. The Jordan Bischel era begins. Um, you know, I kind of just want to see what they're like because I don't think they're going to win every game 22-3, but we'll see. You never know. And they have their first home game in a week's time on February 20th against NKU. So if you're interested in some February baseball at home, definitely go out and check out the baseball Bearcats at UC Baseball Stadium. Indoor track and field, Justin, how many times are we going to say this man's name? Say it with me, Justin. 1, 2, 3.
Tyler Worth.
Yes,
Baby.
sir. Guess what he did, Justin? He broke his own school record once again.
Oh my
He
God.
ran the mile in 3 minutes 57 seconds, 57.2 seconds. 3:57 miles, shaved 2 seconds off of his previous best mile time. Third time he's broken the school record. Third time he's the only Bearcat to do it. He's done it 3 times.
So you're just saying he's getting better.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Roger Bannister. I said Henry Bannister, by the way. I had my English sports history wrong. Roger Bannister was the guy who originally broke the 4-minute mile. Tyler Worth's done that twice within the last month. So shout out to him, man. A legend. And then also I want to shout out Hannah Jackson, who won bronze in the weight throw this weekend with a toss of 64 feet with the weighted ball. Or the weight throw. I'm not exactly sure what she was doing, but congratulations. That is awesome. 64 feet, man. That is a feat. Women's golf, they finished 6th this weekend at the Seabest Intercollegiate in Jacksonville, Florida, where the baseball team will be traveling this upcoming weekend. Tennis, they host those Miami Redbirds this upcoming weekend. Maybe they can steal the bell for us and we could just keep it, because it's spiritually ours, Yeah. Lacrosse, they unfortunately dropped their season opener at Marquette. They will host the Michigan Wolverines this Wednesday and go to Robert Morris on Sunday. Definitely try to watch some of those games. Those games are fun. And finally, swimming and diving will meet Louisville at their natatorium on Saturday. So go ahead and support all those Bearcat sports. There's a lot more coming up in this spring season. So definitely have a few more chances to catch the women's basketball team. Definitely have a lot of chances to catch the baseball team. Tennis will be playing outside soon. Lacrosse will be playing most if not all of their games in Nippert Stadium. So definitely go out and support those Bearcats. And also save the best for last, Justin. We mentioned it earlier, but Travis Kelce, 3 rings on that man's fingers. I don't care that he's a Kansas City Chief right now. He's a Cincinnati Bearcat through and through. And I think the first statue of Cincinnati football shouldn't be, well, maybe it should be Tony Pike. Second statue of Cincinnati football should be Travis Kelce.
We're going to have to throw up a poll. We're going to have to throw up a poll for that one. I think you're onto something here. You know what I think it should be? I think I have a better idea. Not just Travis Kelce. It should be Travis and Jason Kelce. But it should be them standing like only Step Brothers could. I know they're real brothers, but standing like the cover of Step Brothers, the classic poster, the pose. Have Jason and Travis together. Or that, on campus, bliss. Chef's kiss.
Or we should have one of two things: Jason shirtless with the beer in his hand, or Jason with the beer case on his head, almost falling into the bushes. Later, but earlier in the night, like being drunk as hell to hug Taylor, and then be nice to meet you, Ice Spice. I have not met you before. I don't know. I don't know if I know you. So he was comedy, man. I just enjoyed him being a part of this Super Bowl run. But again, shout out to Travis. I do think, though, Justin, down Varsity Way there, as you're coming into the stadium, the football stadium. Oh, yeah. There should be just like a stretch of statues doesn't even matter what sport. I think, the amount of statues on our campus is not enough right now.
Yes.
So definitely a Pike to Bins, get a Travis statue, get a Jason statue. Maybe not any coaches. We all know how building statues of coaches goes. Shout out to TCU. It's getting late.
Honor your players.
Oh yeah, honor your players.
Yeah.
Honor your Olympians. Honor your basketball players. Honor your football
Get
players.
Jordan Thompson up there. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
just do
Seriously,
it
best
all.
volleyball player in history in UC history. So
Hey, contribute something, get a statue.
I
I
like
mean,
that.
why not? Here's the thing that I think. I like your idea of Pike to Bins. I think you could do it in the classic way. The Reds have done this in front of their stadium. Have Tony Pike find the measurement, find the distance, and then put the Armand's bin statue catching the ball in the end zone in the other one, and just have them that far apart, and people will stand and they'll see the distance between, and it's just captures it all. And there'll be little plaques in between talking about the whole event. Steve, we should start a statue company. You want to go buy some bronze? Let's go.
Let's do it.
Go mine
Let's
some
do it.
bronze.
Why
That's
not?
not controversial at all. Let's
No.
go start a mine with some child labor. No, okay. It's getting really late. It's almost Valentine's Day. I think Steve and I both need to go to bed, but let's just end with this. This is my final thought for the evening. My final thought. Shout out to Tyler Worth. I think Tyler Worth, he runs faster than a New York mile. He runs faster than most metropolitan miles. Can you imagine this? Like, you put Tyler Worth out there and you put somebody else in a car and you ask them to get through downtown. Tyler Worth is beating them. He is beating them to the destination. Not just like, oh, he's the guy who's walking past you as you're sitting past the trap. This guy will get to your destination before you can in a vehicle.
And then he's going to meet
the man is fast.
He's going to meet the naked cowboy, also a UC alum, at the finish line, and they're just going to start playing the guitars.
There we go. That's all we need. Like you said, it is late. It is upcoming on Valentine's Day. Steve, answer me this as we sign off. Candy hearts, good or bad?
Is it Sweet Tarts candy hearts?
No, regular.
Regulars. I'll have one for the novelty, but they are the candy corn of Valentine's Day to me.
My verdict, trash. And with that, thank you for listening to this extra long episode. Go Bearcats. Take care of business against the Orlando Hilton Knight Managers. Go check out the 1012 Network. Check out our partners at Charlie Hustle. And go Bearcats.
Viva la Cats!